All right, welcome back to The Explainer. Today we're jumping straight into the pages of one of the most breathtaking, frankly blood-soaked chapters in all of human history. We are exploring the comprehensive saga of Samrat Prithviraj Chauhan. It is this epic, sweeping history full of towering war elephants, intense political feuds, heartbreaking betrayals, and a final, legendary act of defiance that literally echoes through time. So get ready, because the legend of Samrat Prithviraj Chauhan reads exactly like a cinematic masterpiece passed down through history.
4 बंस 24 गज अंगुल अष्टप्रमाण ता ऊपर सुल्तान है मत छूको चौहान. Okay, I want you to just let those chilling poetic coordinates echo in the back of your mind for a minute. They are the key to an unimaginable climax, this secret mathematical whisper delivered in the absolute darkest of dungeons. But to understand what those words actually mean and the ultimate blood sacrifice they demand, we have to go back to where the fire started.
Section 1. The Inheritance of Delhi, a Teenage Emperor's Rise. Okay, let's dive into this. The year is 1180 CE, and the geopolitical landscape of northern India is practically shifting on its axis. The Kingdom of Ajmer is already a formidable force, right? But a decision made by an aging king in the neighboring territory of Delhi is about to change the fate of the entire subcontinent. At just 14 years old, really think about that for a second, just 14, Prithviraj Chauhan III steps completely out from the shadow of his mother's regency. He takes absolute, independent control of his destiny. His maternal grandfather, the legendary King Anangpal Tamar, facing old age without a direct male heir, makes a monumental choice. He completely bypasses all the rival factions and chooses his brilliant, fiercely capable teenage grandson to inherit the imperial crown. So suddenly, Prithviraj is no longer just a regional ruler. He fuses the relentless military might of Ajmer with the immense strategic wealth of Delhi, and he wastes absolutely no time. By 1182 CE, following some fierce border provocations, this young emperor unleashes a massive, lightning-fast military campaign against the Chandela kingdom. This erupts into the catastrophic Battle of Mahoba. Despite the legendary ferocity of the Chandela twin generals, Alha and Udal, Prithviraj's superior cavalry tactics completely crush the opposition. It's a massive victory, for sure, but a really bloody one. It severely drains him of some of his most elite veteran Rajput soldiers, and that's a critical cost that is definitely going to ripple forward in our saga. Now, to secure this massive new empire, Prithviraj needed some unbreakable infrastructure. He rapidly establishes Delhi as his twin capital and oversees the construction of Qila Rai Pithora. We're talking about a colossal, sprawling military fortress made of stone, perfectly designed to lock down absolute control over the highly fertile Indo-Gangetic plains. But here is the age-old rule of history. A rapidly expanding empire inevitably breeds incredibly powerful, deeply jealous enemies. Section 2. Feud and the Royal Swayamvar, the cost of imperial ambition. So, looking to the east, you have the prosperous Gahadavala dynasty of Kannauj, ruled by King Jaichand. Both Jaichand and Prithviraj possessed these grand imperial ambitions, essentially viewing themselves as the rightful rulers of all of northern India. But this intense political rivalry was about to take a deeply personal, almost theatrical collision course. According to the epic historical poem Prithviraj Raso, King Jaichand's daughter, Princess Sanyogita, had fallen deeply in love with Prithviraj just from hearing tales of his unmatched valor. Well, Jaichand was blinded by rage over this secret romance. So, to publicly humiliate Prithviraj, Jaichand organizes a grand Swayamvar, which is a massive royal assembly for his daughter to choose a husband from the nobility. He intentionally invites every major king in India except Prithviraj. But he doesn't stop there. For the ultimate insult, he places a crude clay statue of Prithviraj right at the palace gates, basically posing him as a lowly doorman. Ouch, right? But that insult completely backfires in just the most spectacular way imaginable. Princess Sanyogita walks past all these arrogant princes, marches straight up to the gates, and places her wedding garland right around the neck of that clay statue. And at that exact moment, the palace doors absolutely explode open. Prithviraj, who had actually been waiting in disguise with his elite cavalry, charges right into the stunned assembly. He sweeps the princess onto his black warhorse, and they cut a bloody, high-speed path out of Kannauj, galloping into a massive dust storm back to Delhi. It is an incredible romantic legend, but the geopolitical fallout? Severe. Northern India is now totally fractured by a civil blood feud right at the exact moment it needed to be united the most. Section 3. The First Battle of Terrain, the Storm from the West. And this brilliantly illustrates the real tragedy of the timing. Because while India's kings bled their resources in these personal rivalries, a catastrophic storm was gathering in the cold, unforgiving mountains of Afghanistan. Up there, Mu'izz al-Din Muhammad bin Sam, better known to history as Muhammad Ghori, is building a cold, calculating military machine. His objective? To establish a permanent empire right in the heart of India. And this sets up a clash of two completely different worlds on the historic plains of Terrain in 1191 CE. On one side, Prithviraj commands a traditional, heavy Indian force. We're talking an unbreakable wall of heavy infantry, elite close-quarter swordsmen, and devastating, towering war elephants clad in iron plates. On the other side, Ghori brings highly mobile Central Asian cavalry, trained strictly in rapid hit-and-run horse archery. It is the classic, unstoppable force meeting an immovable object. And in this case, the immovable object wins. The first battle of Terrain is an absolute bloodbath for the invaders. Prithviraj forces launch a relentless, crushing frontal assault that just completely shatters Ghori's flanks. Right in the center of this chaotic, screaming melee, the governor of Delhi, Govind Rai, riding atop a massive war elephant, actually drives a heavy steel spear straight into Muhammad Ghori. Severely wounded and bleeding profusely, Ghori collapses. The terrified Ghorid army, seeing their commander fall, completely breaks rank and flees in absolute panic across the desert horizon. Now notice the strict ancient Rajput code of war ethics at play here. Prithviraj stands victorious, but he gestures to his generals to halt the pursuit. He adheres to an unbending moral code which absolutely forbade attacking a retreating, wounded, or fleeing enemy. So he grants the bleeding Ghori mercy and actually lets him escape back to Afghanistan. It is a magnificent, awe-inspiring display of chivalry, but strategically, it was a fatal, catastrophic blunder. And for us looking back today, it perfectly frames that ancient tension between upholding moral honor and securing basic strategic survival. Moving into Section 4, Deception and the Tragic Fall, a blood oath of vengeance. Because look, Muhammad Ghori did not operate under a code of chivalry. He operated solely under the law of total victory. After returning to Ghazni in absolute public humiliation, Ghori sits in the dark and swears a blood oath of vengeance. He spends an entire year completely rebuilding his military machine. In 1192 CE, just 1 year later, Ghori returns. And this time he brings an overwhelming force of 120,000 highly disciplined elite troops. Prithviraj matches out to meet him at Terrain once more, but this time the emperor is at a massive disadvantage. Most of his primary generals and veteran armies are currently deployed away on other imperial frontiers. So Ghori sets a ruthless, deeply methodical trap. Step 1, he feigns a desire for peace negotiations, sending messages of truce to intentionally lull the Rajput camp into a false sense of security. Step 2, under the cover of a dense, blinding dawn mist, while the Rajput soldiers are completely unarmed, bathing and performing their morning prayers, Ghori launches a massive, treacherous surprise ambush. Flaming arrows just start raining down from the fog. And Step 3, absolute psychological wear down. Ghori commands his horse archers to never engage in close combat. They shoot, wheel away, and retreat endlessly, systematically drawing out and completely exhausting the heavy Indian units. It is literally a masterclass in military deception. By midday, fighting without armor, starved, and completely outmaneuvered by these endless waves of arrows, the brave Rajput lines finally collapse. The great Samrat Prithviraj Chauhan is surrounded, overwhelmed, and taken away as a prisoner of war. The gates of the subcontinent are effectively torn open. Section 5. The legendary final arrow, the final defiance. Now, while mainstream historical records indicate an early execution following his capture, the cultural memory and folklore of India preserve a deeply powerful, legendary story of his final moments. We transition now to a dark, gritty stone dungeon in Ghazni, Afghanistan. A heavily chained Prithviraj stands tall, facing terrible torture from his captor. Ghori demands that the captured emperor lower his eyes in submission. Prithviraj refuses. He looks his captor dead in the face and proudly declares, "A Rajput's eyes only lower in death." Enraged by this unyielding defiance, Ghori orders his guards to bring forward red-hot iron rods. They burn the rods directly into Prithviraj's eyes, brutally blinding the emperor forever. But the story doesn't just end in the dark. Hearing of his master's torture, Prithviraj's loyal court poet, Chand Bardai, travels in disguise all the way to Ghazni. Bardai manages to trick Ghori into organizing a grand spectacle in the Colosseum arena. He tells Gauri that the blind king possesses Shabda-Vediban, which is the legendary, flawless ancient ability to shoot a moving target using absolutely nothing but sound. Gauri, arrogant and just wanting to be entertained by his broken prisoner, agrees. So the crucial point is this magnificent trap. A blind, bleeding Prithviraj is handed a massive composite bow and a single steel arrow in the center of a roaring arena. Gauri sits high up on a protected royal balcony. As Gauri speaks to signal the start of the performance, Chand Bardai stands near his king and swiftly chants those exact words from our introduction. Char Bans Chabis Guj, Angil Asta Perman, Ta Upar Sultan Hai, Ma Chuko Chauhan. 4 bamboo lengths, 24 yards, and 8 finger breadths away, sits the Sultan. Do not miss your mark, Chauhan. Guided flawlessly by the math of that poetic coordinate and zeroing in on the precise sound of Gauri's voice from the balcony, Prithviraj Chauhan draws the bowstring back to his ear. The massive bow releases with a boom. The final steel arrow flies true, soaring through the air and piercing his captor straight through the throat, ending his life instantly. Then, to escape being tortured to death by the furious enemy guards, Prithviraj and Chand Bardai take each other's lives right there in the arena, sealing their ultimate loyalty in blood. And this is exactly why his name is permanently carved into the bedrock of history. Though his physical empire fell that day, the comprehensive saga of Samrat Prithviraj Chauhan never faded into the dust of time. He achieved absolute immortality. He stands across the centuries, not as a king who lost a battle, but as the eternal embodiment of unyielding Indian courage, a man of honor that simply refused to be broken.
Which kind of leaves us with a profound, lingering question as we wrap up this explainer. Look at the two men on the plains of Touraine. Does history ultimately reward honorable chivalry, or does it only reward ruthless victory? It's a fascinating debate for sure. If you want to dive deeper and explore more incredible, structured stories of history's greatest empires, make sure to subscribe to our channel and let us know your thoughts below. Keep learning, and I'll see you in the next explainer.